Well, hello everyone and welcome to Cup of TV. It is Cookie here and Luke, joined with another Luke here today. I'll welcome in Luke very, very soon. But welcome everyone. If this is your first time tuning in today, no matter where you're watching, please make sure you give a big hello in the chat room, and please use the chat room if anything lands for you today. If you've got a question that you want to ask Luke, please put that into the chat room as well. We're going to have a really good show. Luke is one of our newest members. He came in late last year here at Cuppa, one of our experts and thought leaders. And today we get to pick his brain around a very important topic area that's impacting loads and loads of people inside the workplace. Before I kick it off, though, I do want to acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and recognise their continuing connections to lands, water and community. I do pay my respects to the elders, both past and present. Always want to say thanks to the First Nations elders and wisdom holders that we do have here on our lands, where we can learn every single day from that wisdom. And I encourage everyone to do so as much as possible. Well, workplace culture, workplace resilience is a very big topic area right now in many organisations. Today, we've got one of the best in the business, Luke Evans. Now, Luke is a resilience coach. He's also the founder of Emotive Work and someone who's spent nearly 20 years inside high-performing organisations asking the simple question of why do capable people struggle so much under pressure? If that's a question that you're asking yourself inside your organisation, then tune your ears in, because we're going to get into that conversation today. Luke does bring a fresh lens, connecting belief, biology and behaviour to show why culture often breaks when it's tested and what leaders can do to build something far more resilient. Mate, welcome. This is your first appearance on Cuppa.
This is my first appearance.
How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good.
Good.
I mean, what a setup, right? Two Lukes, both in black shirts. You're welcome.
I know. It's like we're mimes.
Yeah, I know.
Anyway, that is not the show, everyone. So Luke, I've given slight bit of context around who you are. Mm-hmm. But as this is your first time at Cuppa, I'd love you just to expand a little bit more about your story, your journey, and why you're doing this support, I suppose, for organisations and people.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, where does the story always begin, right? You kind of cast your mind back and think, is it this point or this point or this point? For me, I think from a work context, ever since I left school, I've always been working in the people space. So whether it was HR, recruitment, staff benefits, travel benefits, whatever it might be, it was always around the people space. And then landed me when I was with the Virgin Group in the culture and experience team. So really getting focused on what does it take to build culture? What do we do to build a great employee experience? And what better place to learn than with an organization like, Virgin Australia Group or Virgin Group in general, where really it's about building purpose-led organizations and creating, pretty epic experiences for a lot of people. So that was kind of where it led me to. Now, fast forward, we kind of went through a bit of a moment in time, dare we say the C word, but we went through a moment in time where the world kind of stopped for a little bit.
Yeah.
We navigated our way through that, came out the other side. I've ran my own business. I've had a couple of businesses now. It was really focused on building those great cultures. But it got to a point where it was like, do you know what? I think there's something beyond just the culture piece here, which is what led me into the resilience work.
Culture and resilience. Why do you think there's such a bridge there that you had to cross, I suppose? And what made you lean in even more? Like, was there any sort of awakenings on your side that led you to the fact that, most people are going to work every single day, but are struggling under the pressure? Like, where has that bridge really been from that culture and resilience piece?
Yeah, for me, it was, so after Virgin Group, we had a company called MJoy with a partner of mine. We co-founded that together. It was her, Emma Hall, shout out to her, who is one of my best mates, but also we worked very well together, built out this business focused on culture. Life happens. And I think what's a really important part here is to intertwine your own, and you know this well, your own personal experience that goes through it, right? Life happens. My oldest brother was diagnosed with brain cancer. I came out of a 7-year relationship. There's lots of things happening post-COVID, and my world was kind of turning upside down. For me, I've traveled a lot. I've lived overseas. I've lived in the Middle East for 6 years. I've lived in London. I've lived in Nepal. I've traveled to, quite a number of places, 49 countries and counting. So I've kind of seen the world. And part of my drive was like, I need to get out of here again. I need to just go and kind of get out of Australia for a bit. That led me back to Dubai, and it led me to working for an organization where I was focused on two things. It was looking at employee experience, so culture and employee experience. I was the head of culture and employee experience, and I had my mandate twofold. One, do this for the group of companies, but two, start looking at this wellbeing concept. So they offered free wellbeing as part of their program of work that they did as a business. And it led me into this wellbeing space. Long story short, I got to a point where I heard the same wellbeing conversation, which is we have a problem with wellbeing. There's a problem with wellbeing. And I was like, well, we don't have a problem with wellbeing. Wellbeing is an outcome. We have a problem with the system. And for me, when I talk about culture, and I'll say this now, is culture is behavior repeated, plain and simple. It's just repeated behaviors every single day in an organization. There are things that build that up, but ultimately that's what culture is when we look at the outcome. It's you're never working on culture or not. Culture is always happening. And so when I see people saying we have a well-being problem, so an outcome issue, there's an issue with the system. And so that was kind of the gap that bridged, that kind of took me across. Now, twofold. One, I came back from Australia. I did lose my brother. I went through my own hardship and had to lean on my own capacity and level of resilience. But coming out the other side, came back to this same problem and went, how can I help people solve this problem? And that was the resilience.
And when we've spoken about culture before, you and I, you've said that there's 3 protagonists in this. Can you explain what that is?
Yeah. So culture is behavior repeated. We see that in organizations. But when I go into organizations, a lot of the time I'm like, I know I'm a culture guy and I do the culture work, but I'm ultimately a relationship guy. And the relationship exists between 3 key protagonists, as you say. That's the business, the leaders, and the people. So when I come into an organization, that's what I'm looking at. When I've got my finger on the pulse and I'm trying to make sense of what's happening here, and we're running surveys and we're getting a lot of data and making sense of it, I'm also looking at the dynamics between those relationships. So what do I mean by that? You've got the business's job is to create an environment where people can thrive. That's it, plain and simple. Just create an environment where people can do the thing you want them to do in the best possible way. And so that looks like having great policies and processes, procedures, support, whatever it might be. That's the business. This middle part is your leaders. Now, the leaders are the champions of the business. They're the people who are supporting the business to do what it is they want to do, and they have influence over how that works, but they're also there to support their people. You're a leader. You're at the, you're at the front in essence. You're there to support and take people through. So their job is to be the champion and to help to build that environment. And then the third one is the individuals. And every individual has the opportunity to decide to come to work and to take advantage of that environment, to thrive as best as they can when they're there. And so when I look at this, it's like, do we have an issue for people to come and thrive? Are we not championing the program properly? Is the system, the business, not actually creating an environment where people can thrive? What's the problem? What's the through line here? And what do we need to work on?
Is there a common denominator here where it is traditionally halting the ability for people to be able to thrive in the workplace? Like most leaders will go, oh, my people are just not performing.
Yeah.
Yet are they looking at the system and processes around what's being there? Like, is there a percentage lot of more people where the business infrastructure isn't set up right for their leaders to succeed, for them to make that?
Absolutely. Yeah. And we're seeing that. I see organizations where I come in, I'm like, but why do you exist? Why did you choose to do that? Where is this program that's supporting them? Like the fundamental questions, right? And people kind of go, that doesn't matter, this matters. And I'm like, no, it does matter. Because at the end of the day, we're talking about relationships. So for you and I to be in relationship, it requires both of us. We both have to show up. And so I see it with, organizations. So if anyone's out there who does like engagement surveys, the classic one back in the day, we're going to go out and ask an engagement survey. Then we're going to get that data back. We're not going to do a great deal with it. And then we'll tell you all the great things we do, but avoid all the things that we're not doing right. Classic. Used to happen a lot before. People have very varying degrees and views on how they approach this now. But think about it like a relationship. We're in relationship. Hey, can I ask you a heap of questions to tell me how you think I'm doing and how we're doing collectively? You give me all that, and I'm like, cool, thanks, man. And I walk off. And then you're sat there for 2 to 3 months going, I don't know now what? And then I come back and go, hey, let me tell you about how good I am. These are all the things I did well. This is what we achieved. Awesome, right? And you're thinking, yeah, but bro, I told you about this, and this. That's not working. Why are we avoiding that? That corrodes a relationship. It's the same in a workplace. Why do we avoid that? Why do we pretend like it doesn't matter? It's not impossible to manage. It just means we have to approach the problem differently. So, for instance, when we were back at Virgin, we first approached this problem. It was like, well, we're going to change the whole way we do it. We're going to get everyone involved in it. We had meetings and working groups beforehand. We got people to talk about all the things they didn't believe or they believed was happening for them to have to contribute towards that particular service, because it's always a hot topic in an organization. And then what we wanted to do is we used a system where as soon as people put the info in there and it's shut on the Friday, Monday morning, all dashboards are open. Information is there. Leaders are prepped. People are ready to have conversation. Now, I'm not sure what they do there now, but this is what we were developing at the time, and we have since developed in other organizations, which is create it as a meaningful conversation. As soon as you get that info, stand in front of people and go, right, this is what we've heard. These are the 3 things we've done really well. These are the 3 things we're not doing so well. And this is the action plan to start working on that straight away. But that requires the whole system, the whole organization to be engaged in that particular program of work. But ultimately, it's about the relationship.
It's really interesting you say that. And, you know, the latest Gallup report, and we've got a session coming up this Thursday with the MD of Gallup talking about the latest figures around, you know, employee engagement and thriving and stress and everything. You know, it's continuously on a decline or an increase in the wrong way most of the time. And yet nothing's improving, and we're feeling like nothing's improving in this sort of sector. From your response to seeing that data with what you're doing on ground as well, how do we dramatically shift this? Like, how do we absolutely reshape what it means to be in a workplace where it doesn't feel like another thing that I have to worry about?
I think it's about being more intentional and developing the skills in individuals. I think that's really what's missing here. So a lot of organizations are not intentional in their approach necessarily. Individuals might be intentional. Hey, I've got this great best practice and I've got this thing I want to do. But as a business, why? What do you stand for? What's your purpose? What are your values? How do you let that build out through all of the programs of works and experience that you have there? What's the thing you come back to? We're in a really unique time, and I'll come back to skills in a minute, but we're in a really unique time where the system's changing.
Yeah,
real
time,
fast,
real time.
And we don't know. So me sitting here as, you know, some expert telling you this is how it's done, it's like best guess for anybody. Yeah. Nobody knows, right? But what I do know for sure is that when you're dealing with a collective audience, you're dealing with a collective group of humans, we can come back to some really basic human needs and use them at a group scale to be able to drive it, which is, why do you get up every day? How do you want to demonstrate yourself? What's the thing you're working on with meaning and purpose? And why are you doing that? What's the outcome? What's the vision? What's the goals that are associated to that? And do you find a sense of meaning in what you do? And when things start to get difficult, do you have the tools to recover well? It doesn't mean you can't get upset, but can you come back online quickly? It's also the challenge I see. People talk about performance culture,
yes,
and they misinterpret or misconstrue it with a culture of competition. I've worked in performance cultures before, right? And especially over in the Middle East back in the day, this was a very different cultural environment, right? We had over 200 different nationalities. Like, you can imagine what that's bringing. It brings beautiful things, but also brings a lot of, you know, workplace challenges in terms of how do you approach it, because we're all coming at it differently. But there is this belief where people talk about, no, I need a culture of performance. And in their head, in their mind, the map of meaning is back to a culture of competition. But nothing good, like nothing sustainable necessarily comes from a culture of competition. You win at an expense of something. And that's not always at the expense of your competitor. It's at the expense of your people. It's at the expense of your systems. It's at the expense of your time, at the expense of your money. Competition always comes at an expense of. Versus a culture of performance is one where we have the capacity, the tools, the strategies to be able to take action, have vision, know what it is we're working for and towards and after, but also know when to pull back, when to recognize that you've put too much out and I need to capture that back again and then recover and come back in again after that. To know where, you know, like agile ways of working, classic one. Let's be agile in our working, but we don't have emotionally agile people.
No, we definitely don't have emotion.
Right. So these are the challenges I see. I see people saying they want one thing, but we're not quite thinking of how do we get there. So kind of come back to it here. How do we navigate this? How do we get people engaged again? I mean, anyone's guess at this point, but it's going to be very relevant to your organization, which is, why do you exist as an organization? What's the meaning behind the work that people do? Are you focused just on outcome? Are you focused just on the dollar? Because if you are, you're not thinking about your people. It doesn't matter how many people first slogans you put around. If it's not felt and a lived experience, you don't. It's as simple as that. Like, go ask your people. If they go, we believe in this thing, and they laugh or smirk or go, okay, it's likely they haven't experienced it. And likely because one of the three protagonists, or more than that, are not playing the role appropriately, or not doing the thing that they said they were going to do in the first place. And so we want to have a great deal of intention, but we also want to develop skills. And that's where it comes to the resilience piece, is how do we develop those skills for performance? How do we develop good skills for good mental health?
I remember us sitting around the table like literally a week ago, and we were talking about, companies have all these values on a wall, and people just look at those values and go, whatever, man. But we were talking about, just having one theme or one concept that everyone can galvanize around. My challenge always is ensuring that the leaders are right behind that initiative, because the amount of times we get rolled out as Kappa to do things and none of the leaders are showing up, none of the leaders are getting involved. To be able to be seen as a leader, to care and to get involved, how critical is that in this overall flow?
It'll determine whether this lands or not at the end
Simple.
of the day. Because it's as very simple as that. We all pretend like we don't want to live in these hierarchies, but we do. We live in hierarchies, whether we like it or not. And we're all looking for a leader. God help me. I wish I had a leader I could look to sometimes, because we know what it's like to have to do your own thing, right? But we look for a leader. We look for someone to look up to. So when we have organizations or situations where people kind of say they don't care, but then they do care, but they're not there, or the individuals who are there are not championing the environment that they should be in the way that we were hoping for, that the business is set up for, then we're going to see it fail. It'll just fall flat. So a lot of the times, so when I go into organizations and we do culture work around that, it's a range of different work that we do, whether it's looking at the employee experience, doing some consulting, like culture consulting, looking at kind of how it's all coming together. My bread and butter, though, is purpose and values, right? It's coming in and going, let's bring some heart into this organization. But it's not a simple like slogan on the wall, as you say. So it's getting this work that is, and I won't go into it all now, but we design it with the business, so with everybody's input, because everyone needs to hear their language, their words, their something that resonates to them in the final product. It can't be random third-party consultant tells you what you believe in. It's, this is what I've heard you all say, and this is what it looks like. We come in and do that. We build out what we call a purpose playbook. They get that playbook. That's the thing that gets built out into the business, looking at how do we then embed it in the employee experience? What do behavioral competencies look like? Like, how does it really come to life? And again, that could be a whole other conversation that we have. But the next part to it is a leader playbook, because they have to be on board. So it's getting everyone engaged, but then coming to the leaders, going a step further and going, let's talk about your responsibility in this. Because if you don't believe this, and I haven't developed it well, and you look at that and you're smirking, going, oh,
here we go
it's
again.
failed. So you've got to be able to get your leaders engaged. But all level of leadership, not just your SLT, not just the executives. Executives, yes, because they will, they're the head, but also your middle management, also your team leaders. Spend a bit of time with them, get them engaged, hear what they have to say. They're a lot of the time they're the most influential. It's not just about the people at the top. It's everyone in between, the ones who are having to manage you and you. And they have a hard time.
Well, they've had a hard time, and they've never been trained or coached properly. They've usually progressed through the ranks without even having the knowledge set to be able to cope in the environment that they're just being thrusted into, to absorb the pressure, like you said, from above, but to also make sure that pressure's, delivered to the team in the most generous way. We're setting up people for failure.
Yeah, literally. The system is designed for people to fail at times, dare I say. I'm not trying to be all controversial here, but it is in many ways when you look at it systematically. But there are ways that you can come in and reinforce and support that.
You talk about belief, biology, and behaviour as the mechanisms at play. What does that mean in practice?
So a little piece of, something I came up with, methodology is the word I'm trying to think of, that I came up with. Because when I was looking at these organizations and I look at the individual and then I look at the collective and I'm trying to make sense. What I've seen happens here. So we said culture is behavior repeated. We're seeing the outcome. A lot of people and a lot of the work goes, well, in order to get good behaviors, we need to look at what people believe. True. Absolutely true. I do leadership training using LSI, which is a human synergistics tool, which really focuses on your thinking and therefore what translates to behavior. But there's this piece in the middle, which is around biology. And for me, that's what resilience is, the resilience skills. It's about biology before behavior. Because you could say you believe in the things that you do here. But if you don't have the skills to navigate this biology that you've got, to be able to recover well, to emotionally label, to make sense of what's happening inside, how the motor runs, the behavior is always going to be skewed on the outside, right? So you say, I really care that people should do this, but because I can't regulate well, I then yell at people, and they're like, well, bro, you said you care about people, but you're also yelling at everyone at the same time. So I was like, okay, individually, I can see how that happens. And I've got a lovely little analogy that I use, which is like a garden analogy. And I'll come to that in a second, but the second part to it, or I guess looking at as a collective, the same goes at work. So as an organization, what do you believe? What are your purpose and values? What are the seeds of belief? So thinking of it like a garden. In the garden, we've got our seeds of belief. They're little seeds that have been planted everywhere. From there forms this biology, these structures. Now, for an organization, biology is your policies, your processes, your practices. What's the structure of the organization? And then we see the behavior, the outcome, the full garden bed. And so when I walk in, it's almost like a gardener. I know it sounds very poetic, but it is. It's like,
do you get dressed up as a gnome?
I do get dressed up as a gnome. How did you know? And I come in with a hoe. And I start plowing through it. And I sit there and I put.
Sorry, it was a really serious conversation that I steered
because
off.
I get it, right? I say it and people are like, oh God, what's this guy going on about? But it helps.
It makes sense though.
Because it makes sense in your head. It's like when you're a gardener and you walk in, if anyone's a gardener out there, I'm not. I am in culture, but not in reality. But I know when I walk into a garden, right? You don't want to look at a garden that's just full of the same flowers, right? It's boring. It's kind of pretty, but it's boring. You want diversity. You want to see different things, but you're also aware that when you are a gardener and you walk in, you're looking, is there a weed here? Is there enough light hitting that beautiful one over there? Like, what does that look like, right? That's your job. You want to make sense of it. You might have to shift them around a little bit. The same goes in an organization. I walk in, I'm looking at it, and I'm like, well, that looks like a weed over there. That's beautiful. Whatever you've done here, keep doing that. Where does it all come from? And so what it enables, because right now HR are also struggling. They're kind of not sure where they sit and what their role is.
The HR directors and HR people, and that's why, from our perspective at Cuppa, we really want to support them because it's a lonely place for them to be. And they're being pressured in so many different, from legislation to all these other parts. Unfortunately, it feels like they're just the resources in human resources. They've lost the ability to be human.
Yeah, exactly.
Themselves.
And I have a lot of friends who are in HR, right? Considering the work I've done, it's been the space I've been in, and they're feeling it. They're kind of going like, oh, you're either getting pushed into a place where all you're doing is the legislative stuff, the admin kind of.
And how does that make a person feel when you're pushed into a certain place?
Oh, you lose. It's a loss of agency. It's a loss of feeling like you have a sense of control over the thing in which you're there to do. It's feeling like, oh, well, my job's just to come in and do this thing. What's the point of it? I care about people, but now I'm being told, well, don't care about that or focus on this, or actually your job doesn't include that, just do this. But remember, your organization, unless you're a full-on tech company, I know with AI companies, they're trying to basically get to a point where just AI runs themselves. But the rest of us aren't. We're not that. Your organization is built on humans. Yes, you have the outcome, but it is the human that is doing the work. So even when you bring in new technologies, even when all this stuff is changing, you must care for them. And so I look at HR directors and people in this kind of people and culture space, their job is to be that gardener, to have their finger on the pulse, to look and go, I think we could do this better. I think we could use this better. I think this needs to be in the sun more because that will bloom. They've got to have a little bit of that strategic, but also creative approach almost to looking at how to support it, which is hard because they also have just work coming out of the, because it's just so much is changing and they're left with restructure this, transform that, do that, and that becomes a lot. So I'm not sitting here naively saying just go and focus on
so
that.
easy.
But ideally, we would like to get to a point, at least having someone who is focused on doing that, which is what we did as a culture and experience team. When I was in corporate and at Virgin, we were under the CEO's office. That was how focused it was. Now, when I go to other organizations, they have their people, culture, and team, and they have their culture and experience people, and it's fantastic. But it's like where they sit also determines how important.
Yeah. So if they're one removed from the C-suite.
Oh yeah, we were it was like anything that he wanted. It was like, cool, let's do this. This is what we're thinking. How are we going to approach this? What is that? It was very connected in that way, which was quite inspiring, right? As an employee, that felt great.
Well, let's go back to the resilience part, the biology part, because how do you support an individual to actually understand when they're under pressure, how to best regulate themselves?
So speaking to resilience and the focus of that, I do all the culture stuff. I've gone down this resilience pathway. I go into organizations. We do training now.
Right.
So we really focus on developing it. That's the skills part of the conversation earlier. We spoke about intention. Now this is the skills. How do I help people? Firstly, we have to design a new map of meaning, let's call it. So first, I have to get you to understand, what am I talking about when I talk about resilience? Am I just talking about toughen up? Just get back up again, dust yourself off, deal with difficult things because it ain't going to change? Not entirely. Am I saying you must go through tough things in order to develop it? Absolutely not. So first, we must develop a map of meaning. So I always say to people, when we do this work, we're kind of creating in the back of your mind this new map of meaning so you can get it. So what is resilience? That's a good place to start. Advancing despite adversity. That's what we're talking about here, and I can go into more detail on that. We then help them understand the neuroscience of resilience. So what are the neurobiological principles underpinning this work? Because that's what a lot of this work is designed around. And it's also designed around this other tool, which is the PR6 tool that we'll talk to, which is a predictive 6-factor model that looks at and understands how we measure your resilience and also how your resilience is looking in terms of momentum, in terms of future focus too. All of this work is designed by a company called Driven Resilience, shout out to them, and that's who I'm accredited through to deliver it. But how do I work with individuals for it? Well, firstly, we measure it. How do we measure where your resilience is? What does that look like? And so we have a tool to do that, a psychometric tool to be able to do that, the PR6 tool. I then can look at this, and within that report, we can see, well, where are your strengths and where are the areas that maybe are causing a little bit of difficulty? And the beautiful part is with this PR6 model, we look at 6 domains of resilience. Traditionally, resilience was seen as just this mental thing. It was kind of like, are you just mentally strong? What they did in 2015 is design this particular tool, this PR6 tool. And when they designed it, they incorporated an additional piece, which is around health, because health never was spoken about when we spoke traditionally around resilience. And so we have six domains that we're looking at, and we see how you're rated across those domains. And within each domain, we have 4 key skills or strategies that help to develop that particular domain. So the way we look at resilience as advancing despite adversity is we're looking at it as your ability to build the skills of resilience. And we want to do that proactively. And we do it proactively so that we can start moving into a space of prevention rather than, and this is the mental health lens on it, rather than focusing on mental health only in crisis. Because the reality is, you don't need to just worry about mental health when it goes bad. We all have mental health. The question is, what are your practices? How connected to it are you? How skilled do you feel in your ability to be able to manage your mental health, which, by the way, affects performance, affects engagement. These aren't separate. For so long, we've talked about things separate. They're not separate. They're all one. You're one human. You're a complex beast, but you're one human. So when we're looking at, well, how do I make sure they're engaged? How do I get them into a workplace? It's like, do they have the skills to regulate? 9 times out of 10, people are feeling that way because biology before behavior has taken over. It's not even about what they believe. They believe they want to be there. They believe they're feeling good. But then this maybe doesn't know how to regulate. And so actually, if we can learn to do that, then we have better outcomes for it. So to work with people for resilience one-to-one, get them to understand what resilience is. Give them a tool to measure that, and then take them through a program of work to develop those skills. Because as we develop skills, we develop neural pathways. That's it.
What I love about you, Luke, is you've got that bridge, like the bridge that we spoke about at the start, where you look at it from a cultural lens first. It's not just coming in just with the resilience component, because without tackling the big beast of the culture component first as well, that this part almost becomes not redundant. It's great to learn these practices and tools, but both of them need to work really well together, because you've got to set the right environment, right, for people to be able to achieve everything and be able to regulate themselves instead of feeling the pressure coming everywhere. What I also love is all your practical tools and little analogies and little layers like that. You've got 2 other ones, all an anchor.
Yes.
Can you explain those and how they're used?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is specifically from the program of work that we run. So there's a resilience first aid program for anyone who's done mental health first aid. Fantastic program, 2-day program, accredited. It's focused on crisis intervention. So for those who have done it, it's important. It's pretty heavy content, and so it can be a lot. I remember back in the day as an employee, you'd hear people and they're like, "Oh my god, that was a lot." Like if you're not used to that environment and those conversations, it can feel quite heavy. Resilience First Aid that we deliver is a 2-day accredited program. It's focused on being proactive and preventative in the approach to mental health. It's accredited under the Australian Suicide Prevention Framework and the Australian Counselling Association, so really important to know for organisations. Also, an amazing tool as we move into this space of legislation around psychosocial hazards. For those out there who are dealing with it, it is a real thing. There are inspectors who are going to start making their way out to organizations soon to start auditing.
And it's all business, right?
It's all business.
It's all business now.
Yeah, it's like and a lot of the psychosocial hazards are actually at a board level. Like it's their responsibility at a board level. You must be able to demonstrate that you are taking proactive approaches to be able to support your business in this particular way.
I think most boards still don't want to talk about it though.
We don't but I get it.
I don't want to open up the can of worms.
Oh, it feels like it. But by the way, from a cultural perspective, and I know we've kind of veered off, I will come back. This is just how my brain works. But from a cultural perspective, when I see those psychosocial hazards, they're just bad culture.
Yeah,
if you bad culture. Like I was like, I got low control over the work I do. Okay, well then why are you micromanaging, bro?
Yeah,
like, you know what I mean? Like, well, that's how I look at it. I'm like, I don't have the support and the resources that I need. Okay, well why has no one spent time looking at the policies and processes and putting them in a place where people need it? So anyway, let's get back. All an anchor. There is a reason for this. Resilience First Aid is the program. And in Resilience First Aid, they have 2 of these tools, which are fantastic. And the tools are all. So this is a conversational system. So it's about appreciate, listen, and lift. We do a whole piece of work around this. In the 2-day course, we take people through and we get them to practice it. So there's a lot of conversation.
Appreciate, listen,
and lift.
And lift.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's some psychology and some neuroscience that back it up as well. So appreciate is all about my ability to come in and be able to see how you're feeling. So whether you're regulated or not, likely maybe you're feeling a bit overwhelmed, something's happening. We teach you about this in the program. So I can see when you're having a stress response. I've taught you in this program as well what's happening in the brain. So we've got limbic brain activation, what that looks like, ultimately wanting to come back to that prefrontal. And that's what we're doing in this resilience work is building when in our prefrontal, our cognitive brain, in the cognitive thinking part of our brain, the part that's engaged when we're safe and engaged. We want to build these wonderful habits and neural pathways so that when we do have limbic brain activation, we can try and bring ourselves back quickly. Now, if we can't, that's what I see. That's what appreciate is. I connect with you to kind of come in together because the state of my brain affects the state of your brain. Co-regulation. It's a thing, right?
It's a thing.
So I connect in with you, appreciate. And there's language around that enables this. Listen, a big one that a lot of people don't do. And it's interesting, in the program, I get people to really practice this. It's like, I'm not hearing enough questions. And if you're not asking enough questions and then sitting there and going, well, I don't know what to say. I'm like, well, then you haven't asked enough questions. You will know what to say if you ask enough questions. Why? Because it's clear. They've put it out on the table for you. But 9 times out of 10, we ask 1 question, 2 questions, maybe 3, and then we're out. Nah, minimum 5. Ask as many as possible. It's a skill. Asking questions is a skill. So listening, what that does is we begin the ability to start co-regulating that person. Because you know what it's like. You know when you're feeling overwhelmed and you go and sit with someone and you start chatting and they've got this wonderful way of approaching it and they're like, oh no, Cookie, yeah, and tell me about that. And you're and all of a sudden you just feel yourself calm. What's happening is we're moving out of limbic brain activation and we're shifting back up into our prefrontal. We're telling the system it's calm and we're safe. And then lift is my favorite part. And it's about how do we get them back in their prefrontal and feeling better than when we found them. And that should be an ethos for every leader, even in a difficult conversation. Give them something a little better than when you found them. Just help them lift in that moment. It doesn't mean when they're having a bad day being like, come on, mate, you'll be right. It could be, hey, so I can see that you're calm now. Why don't you go home, have a good night's sleep? What's your favorite thing to do? Do that. Let's catch up again in the morning and we'll talk about next steps. That's a lift in that moment. It's not leaving them worse than when you found them. So all conversational system, amazing, especially for leadership.
Brilliant.
Anchor is a tool that we use to anchor into yourself, to be able to regulate and check in. Where am I right now? So this is a really good tool for before, during, after difficult conversations. How am I feeling between a 1 to 10? And what we do in this program of work is we also teach, we teach you about the anchoring skill, but we help you sit there and you develop what a strategy is to come back from 1 to 10 in that program, in that moment. So if I'm feeling, and I come in, I had this recently, I was doing some work with a group of quarry leaders, and one young individual, we'd gone through, we'd spoken about it. He's a young guy, I didn't expect him to he took a lot on, but I didn't expect what happened was when I came back for a follow-up session, I walked in and said, "Hey man, how you doing?" He's like, "Oh yeah, I'm at a 3 today." And I was like, amazing. So what happens here is we build shared language, and that shared language enables people to know where they're at, but also enables you to know where you're at, and then what your skills are and your strategies are to get you back up to a 7, which is head above water.
I've been chatting to a couple of clients about the external pressures that people are bringing into the workplace as well, because that also is something that I don't think is even being properly tracked yet when it comes to why people are disengaged, etc. Because there's so many things happening in the world that we're consuming every single day, from the wars to, from AI to potentially taking our jobs to the cost of living. Like, all these external pressures come in. Is that model that you just spoken about, is that the right model for a leader to be able to support that person even in the external world? And is that their responsibility to be able to hold that space?
Yes, and yes. So it is your responsibility, leader or not, to support each other. That's our job. That's what I care about. That's what I'm on a mission for. Building resilient people and businesses, and also doing this resilience first aid work, is about how do we get people to connect more. That's what I want. I want you to connect more. Leaders, when you walk into the office in the morning and you're deciding to keep your face in your phone and ignore everyone, you're missing an opportunity to have beautiful, delicious oxytocin, go through your body and have and build that trust with your people, because you're not connecting with them. Now, the same goes in language. So when people come in, the thing that I think people do the most is, it's not that they don't care. And we've spoken about this before, right? The whole "Are you okay" day. Love it. Amazing. Awareness, super important. I don't think people are not as aware as much as they're not confident to deal with what would come if they did engage.
Yeah.
So leaders out there, I bet you do care. You can see that person's walked in. You can see that they're not feeling well. You can see that they're affected by it. Maybe they've got family in that particular country. Maybe they've got friends who are doing it. Maybe they haven't developed the skills to learn that over-consuming is not good for the meatloaf, right? Irrelevant. Your job is to support them in that environment. So using the all protocol enables you to go, "Hey, Cookie, I can see that it looks like you're having a bit of a tough day today. Do you want to have a conversation?" And ask lots of questions. Because what will happen in that is you don't need to know the answer. Because if you ask enough questions, you'll get to an answer enough. But you bring people back out of this thinking and into this thinking here. Out of their impulsive brain, the world's against me, and back into our smart brain, which is the prefrontal cortex. We want people to be calm, connected to themselves, and then using this all protocol, that's language that enables that.
I keep on feeling the words to say, but that takes time,
of course,
to do all that.
Yeah.
In big teams where a leader is looking after like maybe hundreds of people, what is your best approach? Is it about ensuring that everyone lives and breathes this ethos to be able to better support each other as a network? Like, how does that structurally work when you've got such big teams?
I think the challenge in those moments is people always do this whole, it's too big. So therefore, what do I do?
Then don't do anything.
Yeah, and don't do anything. We're no longer in that time. I could get on my little soapbox about this. We're out of that time. You're out of time for that. We're no longer there. The systems are changing. Things are moving fast. You have to influence wherever you can. So when I go into organizations, I'm dealing with ones this size. I did one only recently. I had 20 of their senior leaders, right? They're all regional managers, general managers, all in that senior level. Took them through the Resilience First Aid program. Amazing. That ripple effect of them being able to regulate that top level of their leadership team will naturally have a flow-on effect. But what we teach in the Resilience First Aid, this is just a good example. There's lots of different programs, like lots of different ways you can engage this rather than the full 2-day one. I do a lot of workshops, but this is a good example, was we teach them to have that conversation, but also use that new map of meaning to support other people. So if I'm sitting and I'm listening to you say all these things and you're like, everything's overwhelming, I don't know what's happening, I'm using the all protocol to talk, but I'm also using my new knowledge of resilience to be like, it sounds like we've got a vision challenge here. And the brain loves vision. It loves knowing where it's going. It wants to advance towards something and have goals towards it. Now, I had another organization where they didn't even know if they're going to exist in 6 months or 3 months or 5 weeks, right? And a lot, you can imagine the road,
pressure,
right?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I walked in, I was like, my Lord, like, trust me, I'm not here to tell you all to harden up, but what I am here to remind you is that you have agency.
Yeah.
And that when we use vision, sometimes it's a very simple vision. It's determining what does the next 30 days look like and what am I going to achieve in that. I run my own business. I know what it's like.
Yeah.
I know it's like, we know what it's like from cash flow, from opportunities, we have to lean on that. I also know what it's like when you lose a loved one. Now, people could go, they're very different. They're not. It's the same toolkit. When I had to wake up and be there for my family, it was like, okay, what are the tools and strategies I have today to get through the next 24 hours? That was my strategy. Versus, okay, I'm in an organization, I don't know what this looks like. All right, I'm going to give myself 30 days. I'm going to give myself 9 weeks. I'm going to give whatever it might be. And then what are the goals? And then move towards it. The brain loves anticipation. It loves moving towards something. I bet for people listening, 9 times out of 10, when you have felt most disengaged or most uncertain, it's because you don't know what you're working towards. And it's very easy to go, oh, the whole world's turning to, you know what, and let's just forget about it. But no, you need to know something you're working towards. Even because we don't know. None of us know. We get hit by a bus tomorrow.
Yeah, we don't.
We're still actively participating. So my point here is you have a ripple effect on people, especially as a leader. You develop your skills and then naturally develop other people in that process. We can take the approach that, yeah, it's too hard, so what do we do? Or you can look at it and go, well, what are we capable of chipping away at right now that will hopefully have an effect, and then trickle that down to people as we go. Because at the end of the day, culture is behavior repeated. You're not choosing to work on it or not. It's always happening. It's whether you're intentional about it or you're not intentional about it.
Mate, I could chat to you all day. I even forgot that to even get people to post questions, but we had one earlier. Is that a misalignment in expectations and the real work?
Where was that in context?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember that too. I should have brought it up earlier. I was too busy.
In the real work.
Too busy in the conversation.
It can be. So I'm a big believer in, so think about the reality, which is if you aren't clear on expectations, think about a relationship, right? If I walk in and I've got a whole set of expectations of Cookie and how he should be showing up and doing those things, and then the reality at hand, they have to align at some point. So as leaders, it's really important to have conversations to make sure people are aware of, well, what are your expectations in this? There's one big expectation that could be a whole other conversation we have, which is people have shifted, our systems and our cultures and our communities have shifted to a point where, and Esther Perel does a beautiful conversation of this, where once upon a time we had all of these separate things that we went to. So we had our church and our community group and our family and our tribe and our this and that, and people have consolidated this to the workplace. And I think this is where our tension point is. People walk in and go, you should meet all my needs. And I'm a culture guy. I really care about building purpose-led organizations. I say, no, I don't have to meet your needs. I'm here at looking at it as a business. And if we don't have this business doing what the business is meant to do, you don't have a job. So our first priority is how do we make sure we build a business that's going to be sustainable? Now, we also need to be sustainable in that. And that's the intersection. That's the part where it goes, I care deeply about you with the intention that we're delivering for this system that we want to be part of. And the system must give back as well in that process too. But the challenge is people's expectation that you must give me everything that I need. I think that that one's going to be something that we'll naturally have to start working out over time to be like, no, you have agency and you also have life beyond the workplace. So how do we help people manage?
Workplaces have been guilty of making that happen, though. Like
they also have,
they're like
it's both sides.
It's like we've got to do this, we've got to do yoga, we've got to do like they've given everything to the people. Now they're going, well, we want something back, but that tension point isn't there.
Yeah. But it's also where the reality is. Like, why are we just giving out? Like, by the way, giving out yoga apps and 10,000 steps challenge does not solve your well-being issue.
Yeah, it's not a
system issue, right? But we also have had a wider collective vision of the hustle culture. And so this has all played a role. Anyway, we can sit here and chat the whole way long, but I don't know how we're doing for time.
Yeah, we're at capacity, bro. Now, Luke, like I said, is part of our brewing community of minds. If you haven't checked out our website, please do so. Go to cuppa.tv and you can browse all our beautiful brains, including Luke's. So you can find out more about Luke. You can message him here as well if you want to pick his brain a little bit more. You can book in a connection call, find out a little bit more information. I love reading the fun facts. What's one here? I know you're a country boy. I knew that.
Country boy, yeah.
You love your early morning, strong coffee.
Yeah.
I reckon you can do better.
You reckon I can do better?
Yeah, I want
meaningful concept. Did I put on there? I can do a handstand, guys.
Can you do a handstand?
Did I not
Amazing.
put on there? I didn't do it.
And he dresses up as a gnome for all those gardening conversations.
If I'm ready to come in and help.
Yeah, well, he will do it for money, by the way. So, but what I was saying there is please do check out Luke. We'll send it all in the post show notes as well. If you found this session fascinating, if you found it for something that you might want to share with other leaders in the business, you can see here where Luke's heading around that whole let's look at your business as an overall great place to be from a cultural perspective, but then also how do we build that individual resilience. Luke, it's been absolutely incredible having you on today, mate. Thanks for your first session. I don't think it's our last. You're going to see Luke a lot more around the couple walls, and we'll be seeing how we can get his message out there far and wide. So please make sure that you do check that out. For everyone else, this is a good segue into our show that's coming up on Thursday. So if you haven't seen it, go to cuppa.tv. I'm interviewing the MD of Gallup around the latest data from this last report around how people are either, I think it's 1 in 5 people are actually engaged. That's 4 out of 5 are actively disengaged or disengaged in the workplace. So we're going to unpack that data and we're going to go a little bit deeper here. And if you're a HR leader or a people leader, please reach out to us at Cuppa. We've got a support network coming very soon to support you. It's not a sell. It is literally here to help you navigate what is probably going to be the toughest time in business in the coming years with everything that is coming our way. So, stay involved, lean in, join our community, and be a part of our beautiful ecosystem here where human connection is at its core. Luke, absolutely incredible, mate, having you on today. See you later, everyone.
Cheers. Thanks,
Bye.
guys.